In a few hours, we'll be over at Ohio Stadium as Ohio State faces Purdue with a chance to go 8-1 on the season. Heavily favored in that game. I'm Stephen Means. That's Andrew Gillis, and that's Stefan Krajisnik. And these are our game time decisions. They're the things that we want to see in this game. Some weeks it decides the game, but some weeks it's just more about the bigger picture and how we want to continue to see this team continue to develop. Andrew, what do you want to see from the Buckeyes against the Boilermakers when we're over in Ohio Stadium in a couple hours?
Consistency along the offensive line. And specifically, I think you can put that at the tackles. So I think the offensive line thing makes sense, but I think specifically I want to see what the tackles look like. Donovan Jackson in specificity. Maybe you get into the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and you get George Fitzpatrick in there. You get Ian Moore in there. When you play well, which they did against Penn State, that is a big, big, big check mark in your category. We had a lot of questions. I don't think it's unfair to say makeshift offensive line. They were moving people around. Donovan Jackson goes to left tackle. They played last year's center who hasn't started a game this year at left guard. They're moving different guys around. It was a lot going on for a very, very tough environment to play in Happy Valley. You cannot follow that up with a lackluster, not very sharp performance against a Purdue team that you're favored by 38 points. I mean, barring one of the biggest upsets in college football history, you're going to win the game. So it's just, you can't have a drop-off against a team like that because another step forward is necessary for this offensive line. One, for their chemistry. Two, for their just ability moving forward. I mean, you want to see how Carson Hinsman looks at guard. Donovan Jackson getting used to tackle. I don't care if it's Purdue, Penn State, or the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a big deal whenever you play tackle in a football game, and I want to see him develop. But I also want to see this team not take that step back, because if you take that step back, we are not going to have a lot of confidence going into the Indiana game, the Michigan game, and then depending on how it goes, maybe the Oregon game if they don't look great against Purdue.
Penn State was a bit of a pressure cooker,
yes.
So it does kind of pull the best out of you when you're an elite football player. Purdue's not necessarily a pressure cooker, so I think
slow cooker, maybe.
Maybe
it's a fridge at this point.
It's still at the store needing to be bought. It's like a crock pot slow cooker right there for you, to your point. So, but just still, to your point of consistency, now that you're not in this pressure cooker, can you continue it on? Purdue's got a couple of good guys on, at least on the edge, that can continue that test for Ohio State. But it's a good point to bring that up. Stefan, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to go something along those lines. I'm going to go a little bit more specific in terms of Ian Moore and George Fitzpatrick. I want to see what they've got, because we've talked about it. You're always a play away from being a play away, or an injury away from being an injury away. Like that's where Ohio State is right now, where if something does happen again to the offensive line, specifically a tackle, where do you turn? I want to see what some of those guys, what they look like, right? We talked about it early in the year, like Zen Maholski got a few snaps in those non-conference games, and you're trying to see, okay, well, what do you have behind, Josh Simmons? Now we're looking to see, what do you have behind Donovan Jackson? What's behind Josh Fryer? So I want to see what those guys look like. More specifically, Ian Moore, I'm curious to see what his development looks like, because I think there's an opportunity for some of these guys going into next year to really kind of make a step and make some noise in terms of, trying to get some reps and maybe even a starting spot. So I want to see what that looks like, because I think they're going to have an opportunity. I think you play the starters maybe longer than you normally would, just because you want that new offensive line to kind of mesh. But I think there will be an opportunity, in the second half to get some of those reserves in. So I want to see what they look like. What does Ohio State have now at depth? Because it's being pushed more and more as the season progresses. Let's see what it looks like right now.
You're talking about that on the offensive line. I'm going to go defensive line with that same conversation. There is no reason Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, and Tyleik Williams, if he plays, and Ty Hamilton need to play more than 25 to 30 snaps. There's zero reason for it in this game. Purdue's offense is just not it. So there's no reason for them to play that many snaps. This is an opportunity for Caden McDonald, for Jason Moore, for Kenyatta Jackson, for Caden Curry, for Edric Houston, who's now a 3-tech, 5-star recruit, 5-star freshman out of Georgia. Keep going down the list here. Taiwan Malone. We can keep going down this list here. Get those guys in the game. Build your depth. Let's see it. Let's see it in a game. Let's just see it. Let's see it. And this is the week to do it, because it's a home game against a team you're favored by over 30 points against. I don't know how much you want to do that on the road, even if it is Northwestern, but I do know home stadium, this is when you want to do that. So, yes, we want to see Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau and Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton continue to build and continue to turn those pressures into sacks more often. But I also want to see what's behind them. Not because I think they can take somebody's job, but just because they need it. They need to play more, right? Caden McDonald got thrown into a very, very important part of the game last week, and he thrived. That should be something to build on, and I think Jason Moore and the rest of those guys on the interior and even the edge rushers, they need that as well. So a week of depth, right? A week of building on the positives you saw last week and continuing to build necessary depth, because you never know what might happen in the next couple of weeks. But in the next couple of hours, at noon, we're going to transport from here over to Ohio Stadium to watch Ohio State play Purdue on Saturday. Get the text 614-350-3315. That's Andrew. That's Stefan. I'm Steven. See you later.